Hello and welcome to Hidden History. In today's episode we will discuss Walter Russell's work and how we can possibly activate this ether. Walter Russell was an artist, scientist, philosopher known for his unified theory in physics and cosmogony. He posited that the universe was founded on a unifying principle of rhythmic balanced interchange. Walter Russell went into a coma for 39 days. During this time, he stated he saw the nature of reality. He entered a state where he could access the Akashic Records. This is a place but not a physical space. Upon his awakening after 39 days, he frantically wrote down what he had seen, writing philosophical, scientific and spiritual revelations, which later formed his manuscript, The Universal One. In 1921, he sent his findings, claiming to hold evidence of the universe's laws, to over 500 academics. They all dismissed him, except one, and that was Nikola Tesla. The visionary inventor was so struck by Russell's insights that he urged him to seal the work away for 1,000 years, insisting that humanity was not yet ready for its truths. Walter Russell's revelations argued that matter was not solid, but crystallized light slowed down by thought. Everything around us, from rocks to human bodies, were composed of light patterns and shaped by consciousness. So what is the Akashic Records, this plane of knowledge that Walter visited while in his coma? Some refer to this as the Akashic plane or the Akashic field, also known as the Akashic Library or records. This is a place that has a record of everything that has ever existed or will exist, and is right next door to this reality. So the Akashic Library is just an expression of the Akashic field. The Akashic is an infinite void of latent potential. You cannot travel there in a physical body, but it's more a state of consciousness you can reach. This is a place of instant manifestation. Whatever you think there comes into reality. This is the same substance everything is made of in this physical universe, but it's latent. It's invisible until it's activated. When it's activated, we call this light or ether. This is the same ether that Nikola Tesla was talking about, that his inventions were tapping into, what was used in the old world architecture. This field of energy was once much more active on our planet. Modern day science calls this 0-point energy or dark matter. But this is something science cannot measure or usually completely dismisses. The Akashic field is something very difficult to translate into this reality, as it sits outside of this physical world and is only something that can be self-experienced. The best way to describe it is the same as your imagination, and it's like asking what your imagination looks like, when your imagination is just a blank state, awaiting mental activity. Once you have a thought, that is then created and projected out into the world and becomes a physical manifestation. This is the same with the Akashic field. It's an empty space, a void. But once a thought is projected there, you ask a question or some mental activity, you will receive answers when you are in the correct state. This is the source of this reality and where everything manifests from. Although not aware to it, this is how reality is actually constructed. The ancient Greeks used what was called incubation sleep to reach this state, and it is described in many other religions and cultures around the world. Walter Russell believed that matter was not solid but crystallized light slowed by thought, which is taught in Hermeticism. Nothing is actually solid or permanent, it's all a frequency. Everything at its core is energy or light emitting from the all. Everything within this physical universe began as a thought and an idea, which has become a solid, which was guided by your mind and shaped by your consciousness. At the base of everything we see, it's energy, and it is us that is shaping our own personal and collective realities. This is a continuous process going from energy to spirit to form. Manifestation is simply the redirection of our thoughts and then consciously sculpting that into a form, which doesn't always have to be physical. This could be an event, a situation, your thoughts and emotions, which all contain form. Walter Russell believed the physical reality is fundamentally mental, not tied to a specific time in the universe history. Instead, this is a philosophical perspective that suggests the universe's reality is, in its essence, a manifestation of mind or consciousness and moves in rhythmic circles, which is expansion and contraction. Walter believed that good and evil are illusions and asserted that everything sought harmony and balance. This is a Hermeticism approach where evil is not necessary. It's a subjective term. He saw death as not the end, but the release of compressed light returning to its source. Time wasn't linear, but a spiral where past, present and future existed. Walter also saw electricity as a spiral of energy, not merely electrons in motion. And this electricity is all around us, but we are condensed and programmed into physical form through our senses with the reality around us. The Akashic plane or field is invisible, but once it's activated, it becomes light or the ether. Light is the first form of structure, which then creates physical form. So the ether is the masculine force and the magnetism is the feminine force. With these forces combined, creates and shapes the physical world we are living in. Walter Russell viewed health being the natural rhythm of the body. When the ether is moving, this will freely promote health. The disease of the body is down to stagnant ether and doesn't have free flow. When you look at it from this perspective, you can see how Feng Shui is working, which is all about the Earth's energy flow, but also the ley lines of the planet, or dragon lines, also named song lines to the Aboriginals. At the basis of this physical world, everything is pure energy. So when we have dis-ease in the body, this has arisen due to these elements being out of balance, and illness is simply a disruption of that flow. Walter Russell was a genius and so ahead of his time that he was ridiculed by the scientific communities. But this knowledge was very well known about in the ancient civilizations and a missing link to so much of our history. Although in recent years quantum physics and consciousness studies are now looking at Walter's work, we are still only at the beginning of this old science re-emerging. The uncreated universe is light undivided. The created universe is light divided into mated pairs. This refers to the manifestation of the universe as we know it, where light is organized into pairs of opposites, a positive and negative, or a light and a dark. This division and pairing is the basis for the formation of all matter and energy. So what is the uncreated universe? This is the physical part of our reality that has not yet manifested, that is still in the form of its pure potential. When Walter Russell was talking about light, he was not talking about light from the sun or light from a torch or light bulb. He was talking about esoteric light, which is divine light, beyond the physical reality. This is beyond duality, as it is still with the one and still at its raw source. So the esoteric light is the mental activity. It's the God's mind in action. As we are part of that mind, we are then bringing this into manifestation. So while that light is undivided, it has to go through a process. So it splits itself, divides itself into dark and light, positive and negative, and so on. It divides to interact with itself, creates a polarity. As this light slows down, this then becomes more dense and finally becomes what we see as this physical reality, our material world. So the created universe is light divided into mating pairs, the manifested universe. It's the world we live in now. It's this present moment. Male and female, positive and negative, war and peace. They are all pairs that have been created for this light to experience itself. It's the God mind in action. A simple analogy is the white light holds all the colours, but then there are only actually 3 primary colours: yellow, red and blue. With the different combinations of those 3 colours, it creates all the spectrum of colour you see in front of you. But those 3 colours at source, at their core, are just white light. So with these 3 colours interacting with each other, it becomes God's mind in action and can bring that light into manifestation. This is how it works with physical light. The light can be arranged and you paint the image you desire. But this process is the same with the esoteric light and how you can manifest anything you wish into your life. We all do it naturally, but when we are aware to these techniques, it becomes very powerful. This is why art and creativity are so important as you are creating your vision. Walter Russell also created a periodical table, which proposed a system where the elements were organized by frequencies and vibration. This revealed how all these elements are acting as frequencies. Walter Russell's work was way ahead of its time, and it's how the ancient world saw this reality. Through their architecture, understanding of geometry, connection to the Earth's energies, and being in rhythm with the heartbeat of nature, they were able to access this ether, which was once very accessible here on planet Earth. When you understand how these processes happen in our world, you will understand how much human power you hold, and your awareness will fully expand. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you can also join the members section or become a patron, where there is lots of extra podcasts and documentaries for you to watch. See you in the next video.